Hey Molly, how's it
Hello.
going?
Good. How are you doing?
It's going good. I'm doing well.
Good.
We're like right in the middle of August,
Mm-hmm.
and we've almost completed a full August podcast, which is super exciting.
I'm so proud of us. So,
It's so nice. Oh, I can't say how nice it is to have you here to help me with all of this
oh,
stuff.
good. No, thank you.
Welcome to the Candy Connection podcast for August, y'all.
Welcome, everyone.
We have had some really great interviews in this month of August. So we started out with talking to Dr. Felicity Harper,
Mm-hmm.
who is a clinical psychologist and the Associate Center Director of Population Sciences at Carmanos.
Mm-hmm.
She is also, she's an accomplished woman,
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
She's got the title.
Yes.
She's also a part of the Population Sciences and Disparities Research Program at Carmanos and a professor of oncology at Wayne State University.
Yeah, just a minor and
just,
at the end there. Yeah.
I'm so glad we got to talk to her, and we really focused on mental health for cancer patients and their families.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that I don't think we talk about enough, but it's such
a
huge part of, the holistic care for cancer patients. So I'm so glad we got to have that conversation.
Yeah, I feel like I learned something for sure.
I learned so much.
And you're right. It's just something that we don't normally really think about. I'm sure, it's on top of people's minds regularly who are kind of going through it, but it's just not something that you think of when you're not in the midst of it.
So. Absolutely. Yeah. So I was so glad to talk to her. And we got to talk to a pretty cool senator yesterday too.
Yeah. So we talked to Senator Rick Outman. So he is the senator of the 33rd district. And I thought it was pretty cool that he is one of the few who's keeping the same district number after redistricting. So he will continue to be the senator of the 33rd district. He is also the chair of the DHHS budget, which is the Department of Health and Human Services in the state of Michigan.
Big one.
It is a big one. Yeah, it is. I think it's the largest budget in Michigan. I think he said somewhere around 34 billion, but just something I thought was interesting that you'll hear from him, but really the discretionary part of that budget. So the money that's not necessarily federal funds or has kind of a designation on it already is about 10 billion. So he really, there's about a third of the budget that he kind of makes those decisions on, with obviously the help of lots of people, a lot of requests that come in for that money. So it's very interesting, I thought, to listen to him and hear what he had to say about the budget process. So
it was great to talk to him because, like you said, a lot of people ask for money, and we were those people.
One of them. Yeah, yeah, for sure.
We were, like the MDHHS budget, which is what we were asking for, the 10 million for tobacco cessation. So that was, and we do kind of touch on that with the senator. We talk a little bit about, like what that looks like and how, the chair of a budget gets to, how challenging it is to kind of pick and choose what does get to go into that discretionary 10 billion. So it was cool to kind of have as you said, have the curtain pulled back a little bit.
Yeah.
Exactly. Which is really interesting.
So, and we kind of ended the conversation with him talking about lame duck. So, which is coming up. So we'll kind of touch base a little bit with each other here on what's going to happen, kind of what we think the rest of this year will look like in the legislature. So sounds like they really cut back on their session days in September. So it sounds like there's going to be only a couple of days, maybe only 2 days of session in September. I'm not sure if this is finalized on a calendar anywhere, but obviously they have an election coming up in early November. So October of an election year is usually when the legislature is out of session to kind of focus on their campaigns and tell the people in their districts why they should, vote for them. So they obviously will have that coming up. But so there's, not a whole lot of time in September. And then after the election is what we call lame duck. And they do get a lot of stuff done usually in that time, but it depends on what's kind of going through, right? There's a lot of people who are either termed out, so they can't be elected again. And you have, or people who might have lost their election. And so you kind of have a lot of projects that people were working on that they kind of want to get done during this time. And I kind of mentioned this with the senator. Sometimes it just feels like it's procrastination a little bit, like they've just waited so long and now they have bills to pass.
Even our state reps and senators are procrastinators, right? I'm a master procrastinator myself.
100%. So I mastered that skill in college. So.
Oh yeah.
But so it's it's just interesting. There's a lot to pay attention to, but that's what they, people have us for. We'll be kind of paying attention to some of the issues that we are hoping to get passed at the end of this year. And we'll be focusing on those and talking with people. And obviously our partners and allies will be working to get some stuff done the end of this year. But we'll also be, focusing on what our priorities are for next year as well, and some education pieces. And we'll kind of know a little bit we'll know for sure what the legislature and the governor will look like after the November election.
After the November election. So what I'm hearing from you is there's not going to be a lot of legislation moving for the next couple of months.
Probably not.
Until we get to that December time period after the election.
Right.
And that's when things might come a little fast and furious.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
for sure.
So for our advocates, that are listening, you'll probably be getting some emails from us during that time period, because Molly's going to be watching it like a hawk, and she's going to let me know when it's time to activate on some of those things. So, lame duck is a lot. But we have an expert here. She's going to walk us through it. She's going to make sure that everyone knows what's going on.
I've sat through quite a few lame ducks, and sometimes they're fun. Sometimes they're just like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Sometimes you're in the Capitol until 3 a.m. and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it.
When you hear like whispers of dinner that you're like, oh no, we're going to be here a long time. So,
now, and again, I feel like I mentioned this in the July podcast, but as our state stuff kind of ramps down, our federal work really does ramp up. And there's not a ton of federal updates to give today, other than to do a quick preview of our Leadership Summit and Lobby Day. So Leadership Summit and Lobby Day is when we take volunteers to Washington, D.C. for them to actually meet with their state. With their federal congressperson and their senator to, make the asks that ACSCAN has laid out as, priorities that are going to make sure that cancer is a priority for federal lawmakers. So in Michigan, we have 12 folks joining us. Molly and I make 14, but we have 12 volunteers. And, we're going to be, making those asks. We're going to be having those meetings, and the asks are still kind of getting locked down, but we know one of the main things we're going to be focusing on is that research funding. Right. We had a big win in the Senate Appropriations bill that we talked about last month. And, we're definitely going to be asking them to continue to include that in the fiscal year 2023 budget.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. It'll be busy. It'll be a good time, but it'll be very busy.
It will be. And, this is a really good time for, because not only do people from the state of Michigan come, right? Every state across the country brings as many congressional districts as they have to DC. So this is a big moment for, cancer as a policy priority. Right. It's also when we do our Lights of Hope display. So we will, folks can, right now, through September 7th, folks can purchase a Lights of Hope bag and dedicate it in honor or in memory of someone who they've lost from cancer or who is a cancer survivor. And, we light up the bags around the National Mall, and it's a really moving and beautiful display. And it helps our lawmakers really see the impact of cancer, right? Like each bag represents a person. Right. And I think that's a really meaningful display for our legislators to see.
It's helpful to be able to visualize, to be able to see it,
Exactly. Exactly. My goodness, Molly, that's it.
I know. That's good. This was a good month, a good group of people on the podcast. And I know we're looking to September for some more good content. And we have a busy September, like the two of us for sure, but we have a lot going on.
Very busy September. We have some great guests coming up. But I'm really excited for you all to get to listen to, Dr. Felicity Harper and Senator Rick Outman.
He'll be so happy that we refer to him as a doctor. So.
Yeah, maybe we'll just start calling him Dr. Outman now.
Oh yeah. He'll love it.
Cool. Well, thank you all so much. And, stay tuned for these upcoming interviews.
Oh, thanks, Ashley.
All right. Hello, Candid Connection podcast listeners. Hey, Molly, what's up?
Hey, Ashley. Not much. How are you doing?
I'm good. Are you enjoying this kind of cool Friday morning here in Michigan?
Love it. Love it so much.
It's been really nice. It's not humid. I'm really enjoying it.
Me too. Me too. For sure. For sure.
Well, I'm so excited to have you here, Molly, with me for our first interview together with one of the just absolutely incredible faculty members at Carmanos and Wayne State University. And today we're going to be talking about, mental health and everything that goes into that area when it comes to cancer patients and cancer survivors, which is just an incredibly important topic.
Sure.
Yes.
Probably one we don't talk about enough.
Exactly, so, right? That's why we are so excited today to have Dr. Felicity Harper. Dr. Felicity Harper is a clinical psychologist and associate center director of population sciences at Carmanos. She has quite a long title, so I want to get it right here. So she is a part of the Population Science and Disparities Research Program at Carmanos, and she is also a professor of oncology at Wayne State University. Thanks for joining us, Dr. Harper.
Welcome.
Good morning. I know that was quite a mouthful, isn't it?
It's a very impressive mouthful, and we are so thankful to have you here today. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. I am very happy to be here today to talk about mental health services for cancer patients and cancer survivors. It's something that just does not get enough press, and there's such a need for it out there. So thank you very much for asking me to join you this morning.
Of course. Yeah, we are, ACS and ACS Can are so proud of the relationship we have with Carmanos and Wayne State, of course. And, we like to give a holistic view of, what cancer patients go through, and mental health is such a huge part of it. So, just to get us started off, could you give us an overview of the work you do with cancer patients as a psychologist at Carmanos?
Sure. So basically, I see patients anywhere along the cancer continuum. So it could be patients who have received a new diagnosis, or they have a biopsy and they don't have a diagnosis yet. I see patients once they're in treatment. I see patients when they're out of treatment. I see patients at end of life before they go into hospice. And so I only see adults, but I do see often family members too. So, I see parents, I see children, and really it could be anybody whose life is being affected by cancer and is receiving care at Carmanos.
I think that's such an important piece to bring in, the caregiver piece, right? Because cancer doesn't just affect the patient, it affects their entire family. And, ACS and ACS can have a lot of services for caregivers. So I love that you brought that up. And, obviously, you think this is an important area, but for people who aren't very familiar, how important would you say addressing mental health is for cancer patients and their families and their caregivers?
Yeah, I think it's critically important. And, I think that's because when we think about treating a patient at Carmanos, we're not just treating the patient's tumor and their cancer, but we're really treating the whole person. And I think that, cancer patients are going to receive a treatment, right? And their treatment is the one that's been determined to be the best for them by their oncologist. But everything else, we don't have much control over that. The treatment is what the treatment is. And there's so many things that go along with that, the emotions that come along with diagnosis and being in treatment, as well as managing side effects and everything that goes along with the treatment, and managing issues that come up in their families and for example, if they work and in their daily lives. And I think, the best way I describe my job is I help to take care of everything that's not the tumor. Because patients really need to be able to focus on treatment. That's the important piece there in terms of treating the cancer. So I think I kind of see my job as helping separate out some of that, helping patients kind of separate out those distractions, if you will. And distractions, I don't mean that they're not important, but what I am saying by that is it's things that's going to take away from them being able to prepare themselves best to receive the treatment that they need.
Absolutely. Everything but the tumor, I think that is such a good way of thinking about it. And I know you kind of touched a little bit on how you deal with people at all stages of the cancer continuum. But, when are people, does Karmanos reach out if you were diagnosed with a tumor, like right away, or, when do patients usually come to, to look for mental health services from you when they're in their cancer continuum?
So generally my referrals come from people's oncologist, or sometimes it comes through social work, or, any of the extenders, the PAs or the nurses that work on the multidisciplinary treatment teams. Sometimes patients will ask, hey, I think I need to talk to somebody. But patients don't always know that they need to talk to someone. And so sometimes it's a question of the social worker or the oncologist saying, hey, I think you might want to go talk to someone. And that's generally how I get referrals.
Sure. So thank you for telling us a little bit about, what you do, but kind of as Karmanos as a whole, or, what are some of these mental health services that Karmanos offers to cancer patients, and how does that look for them?
Well, we really have a range of services. So obviously, I'm a clinical psychologist. I also work with a psychiatrist. We have a very rich social worker. We have a ton of social workers, and then we have a bunch of other programs again that really address some of the issues that I was talking about in terms of treating the whole person. Like we have a healing arts program, so art therapy and music therapy. There's also a gentle yoga program. We also have support groups. There's a lot of educational support too. So we really do have kind of a range of things. And sometimes people need one, they need more than one. It's really sort of in terms of, determining what's going to best suit their needs and how it's going to fit around their treatment. Because my perspective, and when I'm in clinic with the oncologist, and the main reason for that from the beginning was I sort of stipulated, like, please put me in with all of the other providers, because to be fair, people don't always want to go to a psychologist, right? And then if you are a cancer patient and you've got a million things going on, you've got treatment, we don't want to make you come back for another appointment. We don't want to make it something special in a different location. So, I'm in the same clinic that the medical oncologists are. So to sort of make that as easy as we can for patients.
Yeah, I'm happy you brought that up. It was a question that kind of popped in my mind as you were talking, is when does this kind of take place for the patients? And is it a special trip back? Or, because like you said, sometimes, psychology can have kind of that stigma and maybe they don't want to, and a lot of things on their mind. Yeah, I get like that, a little overwhelmed, and not another thing that I want to deal with. So, this is very important and very helpful for the people who are looking for it, and maybe even those who didn't know that it was available. So, where can our followers go to find more information on the mental health services that Karmanos offers, and how would they go about finding that?
Yeah, sure. So on our website, there is a section for patients and support, and underneath that, we have support and education services, and so patients can look there and really explore kind of all the options that are available, from mental health services to integrative services to to patient and community education, and to support groups. And I think sometimes the other place that I will also refer patients is a national organization that's called cancercare.org. And they really do a fantastic job too, in terms of providing sometimes some niche support groups and education for people. So that's also a referral that I'll make. And I should say that website is www.karmanos.org.
Wonderful. So we have, karmanos.org, and cancercare.org was the other one that you had mentioned?
That's the national one. Yeah.
Wonderful.
I love that. And one of the things I was thinking when you were talking is like, this is just another example of how Kermanos puts patients first, right? You're very patient-centered in meeting them where they are, instead of asking them to come back at a different time with their busy schedule, is just so important. And, we talked to Lauren Lawrence a few weeks ago, and, she was explaining the new cancer center in Lansing, and about how, they thought about every detail when it comes to like how to make a patient more comfortable. And I think that is just so important. That just another example of how wonderful Carmanos is. And just like you said, that website for our followers is karmanos.org. If you guys want any information about the mental health support services that Kermanos offers. And, I think that's all the questions we have for you today, Dr. Harper. You've made this so quick and easy. I really appreciate you joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm always happy to talk about mental health services for cancer patients.
Yep, it's such an important topic. And we have one of the best here with us. So thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Harper.
Thank you. Hello, Candid Connection, and hi, Ashley. How are you doing today?
Hey, Molly. I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
Good. It's been kind of a busy day, but I've enjoyed it so far. So
I love a busy day.
Right. You get a lot of stuff done on busy days. So, it's good to see you again, and we are excited because we have the chair of the DHHS budget with us today, Senator Rick Outman. And so he was kind enough to join us today, and there he is. Hello, Senator Outman. How are you?
Senator.
Good. How are you guys?
Good.
Wonderful.
Well, thank you for being with us.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, of course. So I don't know if you just want to give us a brief overview for those who don't know you. You are the senator from the 33rd district, and as we just chatted a little bit, that you are keeping the 33rd district, the same number, but the district changes a little bit for you after this election.
Right. Currently, I have 5 counties, and it has Montcalm and Gratiot, and right above that is Pacosta and Isabella, and right above that is Clare, which nice and compact. It makes sense. The new district maybe doesn't make quite as much sense, but it's a good district. But I lose all of those counties other than Montcalm. I pick up most of Ionia, minus I think 3 townships. All of Newaygo, and 10 townships in Kent, and 3 townships in Muskegon, and 1 township in Ottawa, and 9 townships in Lake County, which is Baldwin going north.
Okay. I like that one little township in Ottawa. That was a nice little addition that you got.
And if you saw it on a map, it would kind of make sense.
Sure.
If you followed the Newaygo line, the west line of Newaygo and went down.
Yep.
And where you go across, you actually pick up, the 4 little townships. It just, they wrap around a little bit of Ottawa that sticks up into what you would think is Muskegon County. So.
Right. Makes sense. But, and you're in Montcalm County, right? You're from there, and you're from Six Lakes. Is that correct?
Yep. Born and raised.
I remember some things. So, well, we're so excited to have you. We're mainly here to chat with you a little bit about your work on the DHHS budget, which is obviously a very large budget. So basically, could you just kind of maybe pull back the curtain, as they say, on kind of the budget making process and all the work that goes into creating the DHHS budget?
Yeah. So, for our team, the way I've structured it is we meet in a group. We don't typically, my chief of staff and I don't necessarily take meetings separate from our entire team, which consists of 2 Senate fiscal policy people and 2 Senate majority policy people that deal mostly with DHHS. And, it just, those people come with a lot of knowledge, and a lot of knowledge that I didn't have coming into this. Sure. And it makes more sense to have team meetings as opposed to individual meetings. Yeah. And I think it speeds up the process. There's nothing lost in translation when we're trying to go back and forth with what we're dealing with, and we get along so well. We really are a team, and it's important. So it works for us.
That's so important. And, while you were talking, I just thought of something. And, for those who are listening to this podcast that don't know what MDHHS means.
That's great, Ashley. Yeah.
It's the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. Is that correct? Yeah. And now you kind of took over, this huge budget kind of in the middle of your term. Is that correct? How has that been? How have you adapted to that?
Yeah. So, it's literally half of our budget.
Yeah.
And which makes sense. It covers everything from mental health to physical health, insurance, hospitals, welfare, any of the social network that we have. So it's a big budget because it covers so much, such a broad expanse of different things. And, it was kind of thrown at me. I mean, it wasn't something that I was prepared for. I wasn't even on DHHS when the Senate Majority Leader asked me to take over the budget. But the former chair of that committee had an opportunity to become the Kent County Treasurer. And so he ran for that position, got it. And it happened to be in the middle of my first term, the middle of his second term. And so I was the
here you are.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, here you are. So
yeah. And so, it was a big learning curve. I mean, I told, and I tell a lot of people that it feels like you couldn't have picked somebody more foreign to it. I grew up in the Leave It to Beaver home, went to the Leave It to Beaver school, and lived in the Leave It to Beaver community. I mean, we didn't deal with a lot of mental health crisis. We didn't deal with a lot of welfare, social, the social net that we have. It was just not part of my life. And so it was something that I really had to study up on. I mean,
sure.
But that was good,
And in a way, yeah, like bringing a fresh perspective. I guess you don't really come in with a bias if it's not necessarily something that you were.
Those are true words. It was a fresh perspective, all right.
It's all right. So what did you enjoy most or still enjoy about the DHHS budget?
I number one, I enjoy the amount of work.
Yeah.
It's something where, I grew up on a farm where we worked hard and we worked long hours, and this is something where I could really just dig in, roll up my sleeves. It wouldn't be near as fun or near as, what's the right word?
Rewarding.
If I didn't have the team that I have.
Yeah.
That have just, the Senate fiscal people have been part of this budget for quite a while.
Yeah.
And they just embraced me, and even if I think a question's stupid, they assure me it isn't.
There's no stupid questions.
Right. And so, and I guess the other part about it is, I like that it opened my eyes to a lot of things. I had no idea of the mental health crisis we have. And I don't know that I would have if I wasn't chair of this budget. And so I'm glad I can be part of hopefully the solution to some of that. And, it's nice when people reach out and they have needs and problems that we can solve. And so,
yeah. I bet it really feels good to make an impact, in this area where so many Michiganders are struggling. And, so ACS and ACS Can, where Molly and I work. So, one of our big policy priorities is tobacco cessation. So we're really focused on, reducing the amount of tobacco use in the state. And obviously that's part of the DHHS budget, right? So, we were kind of wondering, what is the most because there's so much that fits under this umbrella, like you said, right? It's vast, and there's pretty much a little bit of everything. So, what is the most challenging part about kind of what to include and what not to include when you're making these, budget decisions?
Yeah, I think probably the most challenging part is trying to stretch the dollars, making the best use of taxpayer dollars. I mean, it isn't our money; it's our money collectively. And and there's only so much to go around. We have a lot more now because of COVID, and I understand that, and that's nice. But the attitude ought to be the same. Let's get the biggest bang for our buck, and if we've got extra dollars, then let's not squander them. Let's make impactful decisions so that maybe we can affect something down the road to lessen the burden when the money starts drying up. And we're looking at that when we're looking at our roads, our dams, infrastructure, but it certainly can be the same case with DHHS dollars.
Yeah. Well, you kind of touched on something a little bit there where I think it's important. I worked on a budget in the Senate a little bit as well. And it's not necessarily all up to you on where you have a lot of federal dollars, especially in this budget, that is kind of dictated on where that can go. Is that an accurate statement? You don't just have all the money that you can choose, the federal restrictions can be kind of limiting.
Yeah, really. I mean, I don't know what we were, like a $34 billion budget, like the HHS one, I think, but really only about 10 billion of it was discretionary. So like a third of it.
Yep.
You know, the rest of the money just goes where the money goes, and
Mm-hmm.
and those are the strings that are attached to it.
Right.
I think that's so important. I mean, even I didn't know that, right? Before I started working at this job. I think that's so important that a lot of our listeners understand, right? Like so much of this is just already set in stone, and you're dealing with just a third of it. That's such a really
and that's good and that's bad.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I tell people it's nice that it's targeted money so that we can't get our greedy little hands on it.
Yep.
and it's bad that it's targeted because we can't get our greedy little hands on it, because sometimes there are better uses for it in a particular year, but you don't have a choice. And you know, so it's that two sides of a coin.
Right. And I think it's just like Ashley said, just when you're not kind of immersed in it every day, you just don't realize like, oh, you don't just kind of pick where all $34 billion go. So, well, so kind of, you know, we're looking towards the end of the year here. Is it going to be a busy lame duck? What are you thinking for the last couple of months of the legislature here?
I would say yes, only for the fact that, you know, there are a lot of people that are terming out. And, you know, there's a lot of misconceptions about lame duck. And certainly sometimes lame duck is for pushing hard policies through that you wouldn't normally push through, because now you've got a little break between now and the next election. So, I mean, there is that, but it isn't all that. You know, there are a lot of people down there that have been working hard on a lot of issues, and maybe for 14 years, you know, certainly 8 or 6, you know, if you're in the House, and couldn't get it through the goal line.
Yeah.
But now they have the opportunity to do that, and they can, you know, they can have their fingerprint on something. They can feel good about why they were there, that they accomplished something, and you know, so it isn't just rushing things through. And a lot of that stuff has been fully vetted for a long time. It just hasn't made the finish line. So,
absolutely. Yeah. Sometimes,
so, you know, you're trying, you know, a good, in my mind, a good speaker or a good Senate Majority Leader looks at some of that legislation, you know, and you know, whether they're Democrats or Republicans, it doesn't matter. Right. You know, if it's good legislation and these are good people that are trying to do good things for their communities, you certainly ought to try to get that stuff through. Yeah.
And Ashley, you kind of made me think about it when you said DHHS. So lame duck, I should probably, for those who are listening who don't know what lame duck is, it's that time period, right, Senator, after the November election until January, when the new elected officials are actually sworn in. So you kind of have a couple of months of time where there's going to be, you know, the election has passed, but the new people who have won that election haven't been sworn in. So
and so typically it gets a bad misnomer because people don't feel there's a lot of accountability, because either these people are terming out and they're not up for election again, or even if they're coming back, there's quite a time period between now and the next election where, let's face it, the voting populace in this nation, a lot of times it's short-term memory. You can get them to forget about stuff, and so I mean, there's certainly that. But again, there are a lot of good pieces of legislation that come out, or maybe even some stuff that maybe isn't important to the state as a whole, but it's important to a particular district or a particular representative or senator. It's something that's been on their heart for a long time, and they're trying to get through. So.
Well, and I always say, like, it's kind of human nature to procrastinate a little bit. I feel like, you know, it's the end of the year. Like, hey, we got to get all this stuff done. So it just seems really busy. But like you said, Senator, a lot of it has been vetted for sometimes years at that point. And it is just now the timing that they get it done. I remember many times sitting on the floor being like, why are we voting on this now? Why couldn't we have done this months ago? But there we are, you know, sitting there until all hours of the night getting these bills done. So, but, well, is there anything else as we kind of wrap up? We appreciate all your time today, Senator. Is there anything else that you kind of wanted to touch on, or are you feeling good? We'll let you get back to work.
I think I'm okay. Less is more.
Yeah, less is more.
We love that. Thank you so much for joining us today, Senator. It was so great to have, you know, the chair of the DHHS budget with us to talk about these really important issues that are facing our state. So thank you again for your time. We really appreciate it. And, now before we sign off, we're just going to hear a word from our sponsor, Karmanos Cancer Institute. Thanks again, Senator.
Yep,
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you're a patient with, relatively rare type of cancer, you may see a medical oncologist who treats that and has a great deal of experience in that specific type of cancer.
We do need experts in every different field to be able to deliver that integrated approach.
At the Barbara Ann Karmanos Cancer Institute, all the staffs are focused on one thing and one thing only, and that is to deliver the best care for you, the patient.